I'm Zoe, 32, the younger of two sisters. My whole life, Mom measured me against my flawless sister, Sarah. At that unforgettable dinner, her cruel words hit hard: "You'll never be as good as your sister." Something in me broke. After 20 years of feeling less than, I stood up and unleashed the response I'd bottled up forever. If you've ever been compared to a sibling, comment below and subscribe to hear how I found my voice and changed everything. Our suburban American home seemed perfect to outsiders. Dad, an engineer, brought home steady pay and little gifts from his trips. Mom, a precise accountant, kept our house spotless, her organization skills unmatched. Then there was Sarah, 5 years older, the shining star of our family. Sarah was the ideal child, beautiful, straight-A student, gifted at piano and tennis. Teachers' faces lit up when they heard I was her sister, expecting me to match her brilliance. But I wasn't Sarah's clone, much to Mom's disappointment. I was average by most measures. My grades were B's, decent, but not dazzling. Math was my nemesis. I'd sit at the kitchen table, papers everywhere, tears stinging my eyes as I wrestled with fractions Sarah had breezed 3 years earlier. But art? That was my world. By 6, I was filling sketchbooks with vibrant drawings, crafting entire universes. I'd show them to Mom, craving the pride she showered on Sarah. One night when I was 7, Sarah, then 12, played Chopin at her recital. Her fingers flew over the keys, precise and emotional, earning a standing ovation. Mom wiped away proud tears. The next day, I showed Mom a family painting I'd spent a week on. "Look, Mom," I said, holding it up eagerly. She barely looked. "It's nice, Zoe, but why's the sky purple?" "Skies are blue. And Dad's arm is too long. Focus on proportions." My heart sank. I loved the purple sky. "It's not realistic," she said. "Sarah drew perfect still lives at your age." Back in my room, I slid the painting under my bed, joining other not good enough works collecting dust. Elementary school graduation was another blow. I'd worked hard, earning mostly B's and a few A's. Holding my report card, I felt proud, until Mom sighed. "Sarah had straight A pluses at your age, Zoe. Try harder." My joy faded, my new shoes scuffing the pavement as her words crushed me. Dad was my lifeline. Unlike Mom, he saw me, not a failed Sarah. He'd sit while I drew, asking about my work, even hanging my sketches in his office. One tough night, he sat on my bed. "Zoe," he said, using my special nickname, "not everyone shines the same. Some stars, like the North Star, are bold. Others have unique colors, seen only if you look closely." His words soothed me, a reminder someone valued me. Still, Mom's message, echoed by relatives and teachers, was clear: I lived in Sarah's shadow. I learned to smile and nod when people praised her, steering talks away from grades. Deep down, I vowed to find something I'd excel at, something to earn Mom's admiration. But year by year, that hope dimmed. The gap between Sarah's triumphs and mine grew, and part of me feared I'd never be enough. By the end of elementary school, I had a tangled relationship with success. I wanted it but dreaded it, knowing it'd be judged against Sarah's perfection. I hoped middle school would be my chance to shine, but that dream was trickier than I expected. The summer before 8th grade changed everything. Sarah got into Harvard with a full scholarship. Our house became a party zone, relatives flooding in to celebrate her and my parents' pride. I'll never forget the party Mom threw for Sarah's Harvard acceptance. Our living room was decked out in crimson and white, Harvard gear on every surface. As I set out food platters, I heard Mom tell her friends, "We always knew Sarah was special." She spoke full sentences at 18 months. At 13, I was stumbling through adolescence, feeling more invisible at home. That night, while guests praised Sarah, I escaped to my room, cranked my music, and sketched furiously, my pencils ripping the paper. When school started that fall, I changed. The eager student was gone, replaced by someone who saw no point in trying. My grades, once okay, slipped to C's and even D's, each one sparking Mom's growing frustration. Halfway through the semester, I was called to the guidance counselor's office. Mom had set up the meeting, sitting stiffly, hands folded, face stern. Zoe's always been an underachiever compared to her sister, she told Mr. Wilson, as if I wasn't there. This behavior worries me. Sarah was class president and taking advanced courses by now. Mr. Wilson tried to shift the focus. Every student has their own path, Mrs. Williams. Let's discuss Zoe's strengths. But Mom wasn't interested. The meeting ended with a strict plan, weekly reports, and no privileges until my grades improved. That's when I found my escape in art. The community center's weekend workshops let me dive into urban art, fashion sketches, and mixed media, far from the real art Mom valued. My wardrobe changed too, swapping preppy clothes for thrift store finds, band tees, and bold accessories. I dyed a purple streak in my hair, earning a 2-week grounding and a lecture. What will people think? Mom groaned. Sarah never had a phase like this. Maybe that's the issue, I snapped. I'm sick of hearing about Sarah. My friends changed too. I connected with creative misfits who didn't fit the success mold. Emily, my best friend, became my rock. With her green-tipped hair and love for photography, she was everything Mom hated, making our bond stronger. Your mom's got Sarah blinders on, Emily said one day on the school bleachers. She can't see how awesome you are in your own way. Her words clicked, helping me see our family's issues weren't my fault. Even as I seemed to give up on school, I kept honing my art in secret. When my high school announced a fashion design contest in sophomore year, I poured weeks into my entry, working late at school and at Emily's to hide it from Mom. When they called my name as the winner, I was thrilled. My vintage-inspired dress with modern touches wowed the art college judges. That night, I rushed home, trophy and certificate in hand, eager for Mom's approval. Mom, I won the design competition! I shouted, finding her in the kitchen. She glanced up, confused. What competition? The fashion design one at school. Look! I held up the trophy, a figure with a fabric swatch. She frowned, wiping her hands. I didn't know about this. Is this why your algebra grade dropped to a C-? My heart sank. Does it matter? I won, Mom, out of everyone. She sighed, handing back the trophy. Zoe, if you put half this effort into school, you could have a future like Sarah. She was prepping for college exams at your age, not wasting time on hobbies. Something broke in me. It's not a hobby. I yelled. It's what I love, what I'm good at. Why can't you see that? I see wasted potential, she said coldly. These projects won't get you to college or a stable future. They're not just projects. I shouted, voice breaking. I don't want Sarah's future. I want mine. That was our first real fight, the moment I challenged her idea of who I should be. I stormed to my room, slammed the door, and cried, clutching my trophy. Dad came in later, resting a hand on my shoulder. She wants what's best for you, he said softly, but I heard his doubt. No, I sobbed. She wants another Sarah. That night changed things with Mom. The quiet tension between us was now out in the open, no more pretending. Things got worse when Sarah graduated summa cum laude from Harvard and landed a top law firm job in Boston. Our house became a museum of her success, framed diploma, offer letter on the fridge, relatives calling to praise my parents' perfect daughter. Meanwhile, I was planning my own graduation, applying to art and design colleges, trying to build a future true to me. But every step I took felt heavier under the weight of comparison, threatening to crush the identity I was fighting to create. When my college acceptance letters came, I was thrilled to get into several art schools, including a partial scholarship to the State University's top design program. It wasn't Harvard, but it was my dream. I hoped Mom would celebrate, but her reaction was no surprise. State University, she said, eyebrows raised, scanning the letter. Better than community college, I guess, but Sarah had Ivy League offers everywhere. Her words stung less than I expected. Maybe I was growing numb to her comparisons, or maybe I was done chasing her approval. Moving into my dorm felt like freedom. My small, sunny room, shared with a music major named Zoe who was always at practice, became my haven. I decorated it my way, worked on designs anytime, and lived free from Sarah's shadow. Those first weeks of college were intense but exciting. I was surrounded by creative minds who valued my ideas. In my fashion design class, I met Professor Linda Carter, a former big-name designer now teaching. After our third class, she asked me to stay. My stomach nodded, braced for criticism. "Zoe, your sketches have real promise," she said, studying my work. "They're raw but show strong instincts for proportion and unique details." I froze, unused to such praise. "Thank you," I mumbled. "Lots of students have skill," she added, "but few have your vision. Keep nurturing it, it'll make you stand out." Leaving that classroom, I felt taller, her words lifting my slumped shoulders. Someone who mattered saw my work's worth, not as a comparison but for itself. As the semester went on, I found my groove. I joined the Fashion Society, made friends with fellow designers, and honed a style mixing tailored cuts with bold materials and street art vibes, which Professor Carter urged me to perfect. In my sophomore year, I met Jason in color theory. A quiet graphic design student with a sharp wit, he was different from the guys I'd dated. He cared about my dreams, sitting for hours in the studio as I worked, offering smart feedback and coffee during late nights. Our bond grew slowly, rooted in friendship and respect. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was competing for someone's approval. But weekly calls with Mom tested my patience. She'd ask about classes, then pivot to Sarah's latest wins. Sarah closed her first big case, she'd brag. Her firm's talking about fast-tracking her. Or, Sarah and Michael bought a condo in Beacon Hill. At her age. When Sarah got engaged to Michael, a hotshot lawyer, Mom gushed about the ring and his elite family. "Talk to Sarah about finding a good match," she urged. "She could set you up with Michael's colleagues." I glanced at Jason, sketching nearby. "I'm dating someone, Mom," I said. "I've told you about Jason." "Oh, the art student," she replied, her tone dripping with judgment. "That's nice for now." She saw my life as temporary, waiting for me to pick a real path like Sarah's. By junior year, I was shining in the design program. My work was featured in a department showcase, and Professor Carter picked me for a competitive teaching assistant role. I was building a portfolio and eyeing internships to kickstart my career. Then came the National Student Design Competition, a huge deal drawing entries from top schools. The winner got cash and a chance to impress industry pros. I spent months crafting innovative, wearable pieces, with Jason and friends cheering me through doubts and small wins. The night before submitting my portfolio, Mom called for our weekly chat. "Hi, Mom," I said, pinning a final piece. "Zoe, Sarah got promoted," she announced. "Youngest senior associate in her firm's history." "That's great," I replied, automatic. "We're so proud," she went on. Her hard work paid off. Then, the usual shift, how's school? Still doing those fashion projects? I took a deep breath. I'm finishing my entry for the National Student Design Competition. It's a big deal. "Oh," she said flatly. "Don't get your hopes up, honey. Creative fields are tough, and not everyone has Sarah's natural talent for law. It's okay to be realistic." I shut my eyes, her words stinging amidst my hard work. "Thanks for the support, Mom," I said, sarcasm slipping out. "I'm just being honest, Zoe. Not everyone's exceptional like Sarah. Average is fine." After hanging up, I sat still, her words looping in my mind. Then, I poured the hurt into perfecting my submission. As I finished, I made a vow, win or lose, I'd stop letting Mom's view define my worth. It was time I owned my value. I graduated from State University with design honors, a huge milestone for me. Mom barely noticed, muttering, "That's nice, dear," before gushing about Sarah's latest courtroom win. At the ceremony, Dad beamed with pride, and Sarah even showed up, but Mom mentioned Sarah's Harvard summa cum laude degree 3 times. With my degree and portfolio, I landed an entry-level job at Meridian Designs, a small studio making costumes for indie films and theater. The pay was low, barely covering my share of a 2-bedroom apartment with another graduate, but it was my way into a tough industry. My first months at work were a reality check. I expected glamour but got tedious tasks, tight deadlines, and picky clients. Most days, I tweaked designs or hunted for materials on tiny budgets. Meanwhile, Sarah became the youngest partner at her law firm. My parents threw a lavish party with champagne and catering. I went, forcing a smile, my stomach nodding as I compared her sleek Boston office to my cramped warehouse workspace. "How's the costume job?" Sarah asked at the party, trying to connect. "It's design, not just costumes," I corrected. "It's tough, but I'm learning." She nodded. "Everyone starts somewhere. You'll climb up soon." Her words, though kind, hurt. They implied my path was less valid, just a step towards something like her success. Money troubles hit hard. While Sarah bought her first house, I scraped by for rent and juggled credit card bills. Jason and I were still together, his graphic design career doing better than mine. But financial stress strained us. "Maybe try commercial design," he suggested one night after I vented. "Retail pays better." "That's not my dream," I snapped, annoyed he didn't get it. "I don't want to make throwaway clothes for landfills." "I know, but you need to live," he said softly. "You're struggling for groceries." Our fight grew, exposing clashing views on ambition and practicality. We made up, but things weren't the same. 2 months later, after more arguments, we broke up for good. Heartbroken and doubting myself, I dove deeper into work. I stayed late at the studio, tackled tough projects, and spent weekends on my own designs, clinging to my vision. A breakthrough came unexpectedly. Meridian got a gig for an experimental theater production, and with a tight budget and timeline, I got to lead. I created costumes that changed on stage to show character growth, using my own techniques. On opening night, I stood nervously at the back, watching my designs come alive. The audience gasped at a dramatic transformation. At the after-party, the director toasted me. "Zoe's costumes were characters tonight," he said. "She created something special." A fashion blogger at the event interviewed me about my process. Her article caught the eye of Emma Wilson, a renowned designer known for bold, sustainable work. To my shock, Emma emailed me, wanting to see my portfolio. Our coffee meeting stretched into 3 hours, discussing design and innovation. She offered me a job on her elite team. The pay wasn't huge, but it was a step up financially and a massive boost professionally. Most importantly, it was validation from someone I admired. I called my parents that night, buzzing to share my big break. "Emma Wilson?" Mom said when I explained. "Never heard of her." "Still doing costumes?" "No, Mom, it's high-end fashion design. Her work's in vogue and on red carpets." "This is huge." "Sounds nice," she said, her tone flat. "Just lucky you met her at that theater thing." "It wasn't luck," I replied, my excitement fading. "She chose me for my work." She hummed. "Did Sarah mention her latest case?" "She's representing a tech giant in a huge lawsuit. It's all over the news." I hung up soon after, vowing to stop seeking her approval. 10 minutes later, Dad called. "Congrats, Zoe," he said warmly. I looked up Emma Wilson. "Her designs are unique, like yours. I'm proud you caught her eye." His words were a lifeline in Mom's sea of indifference. As I prepped for my new job, I wondered if I'd ever stop comparing myself to Sarah or if Mom would ever value my path as more than a shadow of my sister's success. 6 months into my job with Emma Wilson's design team, I got an invite that stirred both duty and dread: Mom's 60th birthday dinner. I wanted to skip it, but Dad's voice on the phone carried a weight that stopped me. "It'd mean a lot to your mom, Zoe," he said. "Sarah and Michael are coming from Boston. We'll all be together." So, one autumn Friday, I parked my beat-up car at my childhood home, bracing for the usual comparisons and subtle jabs. I brought a thoughtful gift, a vintage silk scarf in Mom's favorite colors, restored from an estate sale. It fit my tight budget, but I knew Sarah's gift would outshine it. The house looked perfect, as always, tidy and tasteful. As I approached the door, familiar family voices stirred both comfort and nerves. Sarah opened the door, flawless in a dress worth more than my rent. Her smile felt real as she hugged me. "Zoe, you look amazing," she said, eyeing my outfit. "Your design?" I nodded, surprised by her interest. My dress, simple yet bold with vintage fabric and sharp shoulder details, was my own creation. "The structure's awesome," she said. "Tell me about your job." Before I could answer, Mom appeared. "Zoe, you're here," she said, offering her cheek for a kiss. "We almost started appetizers without you." "Traffic was bad," I lied, though I was right on time. "Happy birthday, Mom." Dinner started predictably. Dad cooked Mom's favorite meal, and talk centered on Sarah's work and her life with Michael in Boston. I picked at my food, responding when spoken to but fading into the background, as I'd learned to do. Then, during the main course, Sarah shared big news. "I'm promoted to lead counsel for my firm's international division," she said, beaming. My parents cheered, Mom clapping with joy. Then Sarah added, "And we're expecting." "I'm 3 months pregnant." The baby news stole the show, even topping her promotion. Mom teared up, rushing to hug Sarah, while Dad glowed with pride. I congratulated her sincerely, happy despite the familiar pang of feeling less than. "A toast," Dad said, raising his glass. "To Sarah, Michael, and our newest family member." We clinked glasses, Mom wiping tears. "My first grandchild," she said, voice thick. "Sarah, you always make us proud." "This is perfect." As talk shifted to baby plans, I wanted to share something too, still craving Mom's approval despite everything. "I've got news," I said during a quiet moment, nerves fluttering. One of my designs made it into New York Fashion Week's Emerging Designers Showcase. Silence hung for a beat. Sarah broke it. "Zoe, that's huge." "Fashion Week is major." Dad squeezed my hand. "Congrats, Zoe." "When is it?" "We should all go." "Next month," I said, warmed by them. "It's one piece in a group show, but it's great exposure." I glanced at Mom, hoping for excitement. Her face was polite but cool. "Really?" she said. "Sounds nice. Is it the main event or a side thing?" Her tone stung, but it barely surprised me. "It's the Emerging Designers platform," I said evenly. "Lots of big names started there." She nodded, already losing interest. "Exposure's good, I guess." She turned to Sarah. "For the baby shower, how about hosting here with a spring garden theme?" My news was brushed aside like nothing. I went quiet, poking at my food, wondering why I'd bothered sharing. Later, over coffee and cake, my parents talked about their 40th anniversary plans. "We're thinking of a venue," Dad said. "Nothing fancy, just nice." "They're so expensive," Mom sighed. "The Gardenia room's $3,000 minimum, not counting food." "I'll chip in," Sarah offered. "Part of your anniversary gift." "So generous," Mom smiled. "Michael's firm must pay well." "We're doing okay," Sarah said humbly. "We want it to be special." Mom turned to me, expectant. What about you, Zoe? Will you contribute? Her question jabbed at my tight finances, which she never tried to understand. I can help plan and design, I said. Custom invitations and decor that'd cost a fortune otherwise. Her face tightened. I meant money, Zoe. Sarah's helping with real costs. I know what she's offering, I said, an edge in my voice. I'm giving what I can. Which isn't much, Mom said, waving her hand. As usual. The room went dead quiet. Michael stared into his coffee, avoiding the tension. Dad gave Mom a sharp look, but she didn't notice. Why do you keep chasing this fashion hobby when you could have picked something practical? She pressed. Sarah chose wisely. Look at her, top job, gorgeous home, baby on the way. You could have had that if you'd tried harder. My face burned. Fashion's not a hobby, Mom. It's my career, and I've worked so hard for it. Hard work on the wrong path is pointless, she shot back. Let's face it, Zoe. You'll never match Sarah. I've accepted it. Maybe you should too. Her words hit like a punch. 2 decades of comparisons and belittled efforts boiled down to that cruel moment. I glanced around. Sarah looked horrified, Dad frozen. Mom sat there, calm, as if she'd just stated a fact everyone knew. But something in me shifted. The pain was there, but a clear strength rose above it. I stood slowly, hands steady despite the storm inside. If I'll never be as good as Sarah, I said, voice firm, then ask her to pay your bills. Silence swallowed the room. Mom's jaw dropped, her face flushing. What did you say? She stammered. You heard me, I said, strength surging. If Sarah's your standard for success, let her fund your party, meet your expectations, and live your dreams. I'm done failing to meet them. I took a deep breath, years of silence breaking free. For 20 years, I've begged you to see me, my talents, my dreams, not Sarah's shadow. But you only care about who I'm not. That's not true, Mom said weakly. I want what's best for you. No, I shook my head. You want what's best for you, 2 perfect, Harvard star daughters to show off. That's not me, and I don't want it to be. I turned to Sarah, her eyes wide with shock and maybe respect. Sarah, I love you, and I'm happy for you. But Mom's used her success to hurt me my whole life, and I can't ignore the pain anymore. To my shock, Sarah stood and joined me. She's right, Mom, she said softly. Your comparisons weren't fair to Zoe. Do you know how much pressure I felt, knowing my wins made her feel less? It's hurt us as sisters. Mom looked lost, like she'd never considered her actions hurt us both. I just wanted you both to excel, she said defensively. No, Dad said, his voice strong. You pushed Sarah to shine your way and Zoe to be Sarah. That's different, Elizabeth. Calling her by her first name, rare for him, showed how serious this was. Mom's face fell, maybe from guilt or just being called out. I've stayed quiet too long, Dad went on. I thought it wasn't my place to challenge your parenting, but I was wrong. I should have stopped your comparisons when they started hurting Zoe. Mom looked at him, stung. I felt drained, years of bottled-up feelings spilling out. I need air, I said, heading for the door. No one stopped me as I stepped into the cool night, the door's soft click feeling like the end of a long, heavy chapter. I sat on the front steps, breathing deeply, feeling both free and scared. I'd finally said what I'd held back forever, but what now? Would this break things with Mom for good? Had I torn our family apart? Or could this lead to healing? Staring at the stars, I knew one thing: I'd stood up for my worth. For the first time, I rejected being less than Sarah. Whatever came next, I'd face it as Zoe, on my terms, not defined by who I wasn't. The week after that dinner was a whirlwind of feelings. I dove into work, thankful for Fashion Week prep to keep me busy. But at night, I'd replay the scene, torn between pride and guilt, relief and worry. I hadn't talked to my family since storming out. Dad called twice, leaving kind voicemails offering support but not pushing. Mom's silence was loud, but expected. Then, on day 6, Sarah texted, "Can we talk, just us?" We met at a cafe between my place and her hotel. She'd stayed in town longer for me, despite her business trip. She was already there, 2 coffees ready. "Got your usual," she said as I Saturday vanilla latte, right? I nodded, warmed by her memory of me. "Thanks." "How's the pregnancy?" I asked, gesturing to her belly. "Morning sickness is easing," she smiled. "But I'm here to talk about Mom's birthday." I braced for a lecture or a plea to apologize. Instead, Sarah took my hand. "I'm so sorry," she said, eyes honest. "I never saw how much you hurt or how Mom used my success against you. I should have noticed." Sarah's apology stunned me. "It wasn't your fault," I said on instinct. "You were just succeeding." "Maybe," she replied, "but I wasn't a good sister. I knew Mom compared us, but I thought it was normal, that it'd push you to find your way. I didn't see how much it hurt you." We talked for 3 hours, really connecting for the first time as adults. Sarah opened up about Mom's pressure to stay perfect and how she admired my creative drive. "Here's the irony," she said, stirring her third tea. "I was jealous of you." I nearly spit out my coffee. "Me? That's ridiculous." "No," she insisted. "You always knew you wanted design and stuck to it. I chose law because it was expected, not because I loved it like you love your work." Her words flipped how I saw our family. I'd always viewed Sarah as the perfect golden child. Her envying me was unthinkable. "What about Mom?" I asked. "What now?" Sarah sighed. "She's hurt and confused. No one's ever challenged her like that. Dad's finally speaking up too. They're talking a lot privately." We hugged goodbye, and I felt hope that our sisterhood could grow into something real, built on respect, not rivalry. 2 days later, Dad surprised me at my studio during lunch. I'd sent him the address, but seeing him among my sketches and fabric scraps felt odd yet heartwarming. "This is where you create, huh?" he said, holding up a Fashion Week design board. "Something like that," I replied, a bit shy but glad he cared. "It's usually less chaotic." At a nearby sandwich shop, he asked about my work, then got to the point. "I owe you an apology, Zoe," he said seriously. "I should have protected you from Mom's comparisons. I comforted you quietly but never stood up to her." "You always supported me, Dad," I said honestly. "I wouldn't have made it without you." "Support wasn't enough," he said, eyes sad. "I failed to defend you. I'm trying to fix that with her now." He said my outburst made them face hard truths about their parenting. Mom was struggling to admit her role in our strained bond but was starting to reflect. "She may never get it fully," he cautioned. "Her family tied love to achievement, but she loves you, Zoe, even if she shows it poorly." The night before my Fashion Week debut, as I tweaked my piece, Mom texted, "Good luck tomorrow. I know this matters to you." No big apology, but it was a start, a nod to my world. I replied, "Thank you," keeping it simple, knowing small steps counted. Showcase morning, I was a mix of nerves and thrill. Emma gave me the day to prep, and I obsessed over my deconstructed gown, designed to transform on stage, showing my vision. Helping my model into it, I focused on details, pushing family thoughts aside. This was about my art, not their approval. The showcase was a whirlwind of lights and music. Backstage, I watched my gown glide down the runway, the crowd murmuring as its elements shifted. Emma's approving squeeze on my shoulder filled me with pride, free of old doubts. At the reception, I spotted Dad's tall figure in the crowd. Then I froze. Mom was there, with Sarah and Michael, all searching for me. Emma noticed. "Family?" she asked. I nodded, more nervous than with industry pros. Go, she said. I'll handle the buyers. I approached, Dad waving first. Mom looked stiff, out of place in the fashion crowd. You came, I said, eyes on her. Wouldn't miss it, Dad said, hugging me. Your work was stunning, Zoe. Sarah hugged me too. That gown was unreal. The way it transformed, amazing. Mom stood back, taking it all in, so different from her usual world. Then she met my eyes. It was very creative, she said carefully, like learning a new language. The crowd loved it. From her, it was huge. I noticed my birthday scarf on her, a quiet sign of care. Thanks for being here, I said, meaning it. All of you. Emma Wilson spoke highly of your talent, Dad said. I caught a flicker in Mom's eyes, maybe a hint she was starting to see my path had real worth, different from Sarah's. Is she a big deal in fashion? Mom asked cautiously. Very, I said simply, letting her absorb that someone respected valued my work. No big apologies or heartfelt promises came that night. But as Mom left, she paused, her face softer than usual. Your dad and I want you over for dinner next week, she said. To talk, if you're up for it. It was a tiny crack in a huge wall, but more than I'd hoped for. I'll check my schedule, I replied, keeping it open-ended. Sarah stayed back a moment. She's trying, she whispered. Her coming tonight was a big step. I nodded, knowing Mom's habits wouldn't shift quickly, if ever. One step at a time, I agreed. Back at the reception, I felt lighter, my family's weight on me had eased. Whether Mom ever fully valued my work, I was starting to value it myself. That felt like the real victory. A year after that explosive birthday dinner with Mom, my life looked completely different. The spotlight from New York Fashion Week had changed everything for me. Suddenly, doors that had felt locked tight swung open. Editors from niche design magazines reached out, wanting interviews about my transformative gown. Buyers from small boutiques expressed interest in carrying my pieces. It was overwhelming at first, but thrilling. With Emma's full support, she even wrote me a glowing recommendation. I decided to strike out on my own. I left her team and rented a tiny studio space in a converted warehouse downtown. It wasn't fancy, exposed brick walls, creaky floors, and just enough room for a couple of sewing machines, a drafting table, and bolts of recycled fabric stacked in the corner. I hired 2 part-time assistants, recent design grads like me, who shared my passion for sustainability. We worked long hours, sketching ideas on napkins during lunch breaks and sourcing materials from thrift shops and eco-suppliers. The studio was modest, far from an empire, but it was entirely mine. Every decision, from the color palettes to the marketing, reflected my vision and grit. No more compromising to fit someone else's mold. My designs started gaining real traction that year. I focused on bold structures, think asymmetrical hems and modular pieces that could be worn multiple ways, paired with an eco-friendly twist, like using upcycled denim or organic cotton. One collection, inspired by urban decay and renewal, featured jackets that transformed from formal to casual with removable panels. Industry magazines picked it up. A feature in sustainable style called my work innovative and urgent, praising how I blended art with environmental consciousness. Another in Fashion Forward highlighted my use of waste materials, saying it set a new standard for emerging designers. The buzz led to my first wholesale orders, small but steady. Money, which had always been a struggle, finally eased up. I could pay rent without panic, buy quality fabrics without skimping, and even treat myself to a coffee run now and then. Still, my lifestyle stayed simple: a cozy apartment, public transit, and meals cooked at home. Compared to Sarah's world of luxury condos and fine dining, mine felt grounded, but it was authentic to me. I didn't envy her anymore, I was building something real. Dad and I grew closer than ever during that year. Our bond had always been a quiet anchor, but now it blossomed into something more open and joyful. He started visiting my studio regularly, often unannounced, with a thermos of coffee and a bag of pastries. "Fuel for the artist," he'd say with a wink. I'd show him my latest sketches, and he'd ask thoughtful questions: "What's the story behind this pattern?" or "How do you decide on the fabrics?" He was genuinely curious about the business side too: how I managed inventory, marketed on social media, or negotiated with suppliers. One afternoon, he helped me unpack a shipment of recycled silk, rolling up his sleeves without hesitation. "This is impressive, Zoe," he said, holding up a swatch. "You're turning ideas into reality." His pride wasn't just words, it showed in how he bragged about me to his colleagues, sending me photos of my designs pinned up in his office. Those visits became highlights of my week, reminders that at least one parent had always seen my potential. Our talks deepened too. We discussed everything from design trends to family memories, strengthening a connection that had carried me through the tough years. With Sarah, things evolved in ways I never expected. Our relationship shifted from tense competition to genuine respect, though it wasn't always smooth. We had awkward moments, like when she'd slip into old habits and mention her latest case win without realizing it echoed Mom's comparisons. But we talked through them now, openly. The birth of her daughter, my niece Lily, brought us even closer. I remember the day Sarah called me from the hospital, her voice tired but joyful. "She's here, Zoe. Come meet your niece." Holding Lily for the first time, with her tiny fingers wrapping around mine, melted away any lingering resentment. It was a fresh start. I poured my heart into designing her christening gown, a soft white piece with subtle embroidery incorporating threads from our grandmother's old lace doily and a modern twist of hidden pockets for keepsakes. When Sarah unwrapped it, tears streamed down her face. "This is perfect," she whispered, hugging me tight. "Lily will wear something made with so much love." Our now regular sister lunches became a ritual. We'd meet at a quiet cafe, sharing updates on our lives. "I want Lily to know her aunt," Sarah said one day over salads. "To see that success isn't just about titles or money. It comes in different forms, like following your passion the way you have." Her words healed old wounds, turning us into allies rather than rivals. My relationship with Mom was the most complicated, a slow dance of progress mixed with setbacks. We were both works in progress, and some days felt like 2 steps forward, 1 back. That first dinner she invited me to after Fashion Week set the tone, tense, but honest. We sat across from each other in their dining room, the same table where so many comparisons had happened. "I never intended to hurt you," she said, her hands clenched around her water glass like it was an anchor. Her voice was steady, but I saw the vulnerability. I paused, choosing my words. "But you did, Mom. By constantly telling me I wasn't as good as Sarah." She nodded slowly. "I thought I was motivating you, showing you what was possible. Sarah set such a high standard, I believed it would inspire you to reach for more." Hearing her explain it that way highlighted how differently we viewed those years. To her, it was tough love; to me, it was endless criticism. Mom's upbringing explained a lot. She came from a family where love was tied to achievements, like good grades earning affection or promotions proving worth. Comparison wasn't seen as harmful, it was motivation. Undoing decades of that thinking wasn't easy or quick. There were still slip-ups. During a phone call, she'd casually say, "Sarah's handling a big merger, must be nice to have that stability," and I'd feel the old sting. But I'd gently redirect, "Mom, let's talk about my new collection instead." And surprisingly, she started trying. Her questions about design came awkwardly at first: "What's this sustainable thing you do?" But grew more genuine. "Tell me about your fabrics," she'd ask during visits. One day, she surprised me by framing a sketch I'd given her as a casual gift. She hung it in their living room, right next to Sarah's law school diploma. It was a small gesture, but it spoke volumes, a sign she was starting to see my work as equal in value, not lesser. On the personal front, life threw me a curveball with Jason's return. 6 months after Fashion Week, I was at a local art exhibition, mingling with other creatives, when I literally bumped into him. His drink splashed across his shirt, and we both laughed. It felt like a scene from a cheesy romantic comedy. Zoe, he said, grinning despite the mess. Of all places. We caught up right there, the years apart melting away. He'd built a successful graphic design firm, working with big brands, but time had softened him. Over dinner a few days later, he opened up. I was wrong before, he admitted, setting down his fork. I pushed you to go commercial for the money, to play it safe. But seeing what you've built, staying true to your vision, it's inspiring. I should have supported that from the start. His words hit deep, showing growth on both sides. We took things slow, cautious after our past breakup. Dates started simple, walks in the park, sketching sessions where he'd draw while I sewed. But there was a new depth. He understood my late nights at the studio, my obsession with sustainable materials. And I appreciated his stability, the way he balanced creativity with practicality, something my younger self had overlooked. Our rekindled bond felt stronger, built on mutual respect and lessons learned. The deepest shift happened inside me. The spark of confidence from standing up to Mom that night had ignited into a steady flame. Month by month, it grew, reshaping how I saw myself. I stopped glancing sideways at Sarah's life, wondering if mine measured up. No more internal scorekeeping, my worth wasn't in comparisons. I'd crafted a life that mirrored my core, creativity as the heartbeat, fulfillment over fame. Success meant waking up excited to design, not chasing titles or paychecks. This mindset let me see Sarah's side clearer too. She wasn't just the golden child, she was a victim of Mom's expectations in her own way. The perfect daughter role came with chains, constant pressure to maintain the image, no room for doubt. In our talks, she confessed envying my freedom. You chased art without apology. I followed the path laid out for me, but sometimes I wonder what I'd do differently. It humanized her, turning rivalry into empathy. Forgiving Mom proved the toughest hurdle. It wasn't about her becoming a new person overnight, that might never happen fully. Instead, I realized forgiveness meant letting go of the past's hold on me. Therapy helped unpack that. I'd finally started sessions, a step I'd resisted for years, thinking I could handle it alone. You don't forgive for the other person, my therapist explained one afternoon as I sat twisting a tissue in my hands. You do it for yourself, to free yourself from carrying the weight of resentment. Her words clicked like a key in a lock. Resentment had been a heavy backpack I'd lugged around, slowing me down. Forgiving didn't erase the hurt or pretend it never happened, it meant releasing its power over my days. I could acknowledge the pain while choosing not to let it define me. This shift let me interact with Mom differently, compassionate but firm. That perspective guided me in our evolving relationship. When old patterns surfaced, like a subtle dig about my unstable career, I'd correct her calmly, Mom, that hurts. Let's focus on what's going well. No blow-ups, just boundaries. And I learned to spot her efforts, like when she clipped a magazine article about sustainable fashion and mailed it to me with a note, "Thought you'd like this." Imperfect, yes, but real. I appreciated them without demanding perfection, knowing she might never fully transform. It freed me to enjoy the good moments without bracing for the bad. My year of growth hit its high point at my first solo exhibition. Titled Threads of Resilience, it explored transformation through sustainable fashion, pieces that told stories of renewal, like dresses made from discarded textiles with hidden layers revealing new forms. I invited everyone, family, friends, even extended relatives who'd once politely questioned my artsy career choice. The gallery was alive that night, packed with industry professionals scouting talent, local artists swapping ideas, and potential clients browsing with champagne flutes in hand. Dad wandered the space like a proud tour guide, stopping strangers to say, "I'm Zoe's dad, have you seen her work?" His enthusiasm was infectious. Sarah, ever the strategist, networked for me, her legal sharp wit translating perfectly to pitching my designs. This isn't just fashion, it's a statement on sustainability. She sealed a couple of deals that night, turning sisterly support into business wins. Then there was Mom, stepping into this world so far from her comfort zone. At first, she hovered near the edges, her posture stiff amid the eclectic crowd in bold outfits and tattoos. But she made an effort, asking a guest about a piece, nodding along to explanations. I watched from afar as she lingered at one of my signature jackets, a fusion of repurposed vintage leather with sleek, modern lines that allowed it to shift from day wear to evening. The way she tilted her head, really looking, showed she was trying. I walked over slowly, not wanting to interrupt her thoughts. "What do you think?" I asked, standing beside her. She turned, searching my face before glancing back. "It's beautiful," she said, her voice carrying a sincerity I'd rarely heard. "I don't understand all the technical parts, but I can see it's special. You've taken these old elements and made them fresh, while respecting where they came from. That's quite remarkable." Her praise touched me deeply. She was appreciating my work on its own merits, without a shadow of comparison. It felt like a bridge forming between our worlds. "I have something for you," I said, leading her to a quieter corner away from the main display. There hung a special piece I'd created just for her, a vintage dress I'd redesigned, elegant and subtle with clean lines she favored, but infused with my signature structural flair, subtle pleats that added movement without overwhelming the classic silhouette. "This is inspired by a photo of you from your 20s, I explained. "Dad shared pictures from when you two were dating. I thought it might suit you." Mom stared at the dress, her hand reaching out to trace the fabric with tentative fingers. Her eyes welled up, something I'd seen so rarely. "You made this, for me?" she asked, her voice softening in a way that cracked my heart open. "Yes," I nodded simply. "It's yours." She turned to face me, raw emotion etching her features. "Zoe, you have such talent. Such incredible vision. I'm so sorry it took me this long to truly see it." "Thank you," I replied, accepting the compliment and the quiet apology woven into it. Then came the words I'd longed for since childhood. "I'm proud of you," she said, her voice steady despite the tears. "Proud of who you are, not who I once thought you should be." Mom's hug caught me off guard. Her arms hesitated at first, like she wasn't sure how to hold me. Then it softened, growing warm and real, a kind of closeness we'd rarely shared. In that embrace, a truth settled deep in my chest. I'd won something greater than her approval. I'd carved out a space where her validation wasn't the key to my worth anymore. Her pride was a gift now, one I could treasure without clinging to it for survival. It felt like standing on solid ground after years of walking a tightrope. Later that evening, as the exhibition hall quieted and the last guests drifted out, I slipped into a back room for a moment alone. The space was small, cluttered with empty crates and folded tablecloths, but it felt like a sanctuary. I leaned against the cool brick wall, closing my eyes, and let the weight of the night sink in. My mind wandered back through the years, tracing the jagged path that led me here. I saw myself as a little girl, 6 years old, holding up my purple sky painting with hopeful eyes, only to hear Mom critique its unrealistic colors. I remembered the teenage me, defiantly dyeing a streak of purple in my hair, hiding sketchbooks under my bed to avoid her judgment. Then came the young woman I'd been, scraping by in a cramped studio apartment, working late nights at entry-level design jobs, doubting every choice but pushing forward anyway. Each moment, each sting, had shaped me. The rejections, the comparisons, the quiet victories, they'd all taught me resilience, forcing me to trust my own voice when no one else did. Standing there, I realized I'd stopped chasing someone else's idea of success. For so long, I'd measured myself against Sarah, her Harvard degree, her corner office, her picture-perfect life. But I didn't need to match her or anyone else. My worth wasn't a race or a checklist. It was about embracing who I was, Zoe, the artist who saw beauty in transformation, who turned discarded fabrics into wearable stories, who built a life that sang with my own vision. That was my power. Not external accolades or my mother's nod of approval, but the courage to stand tall and speak my truth. Not to hurt others, not to prove a point, but to break free from the invisible chains they'd placed on me, chains I'd once accepted as normal. In that quiet moment, I understood, I'd been enough all along. The realization was like a deep breath after years underwater. The days after the exhibition felt like a new chapter. My solo show, Threads of Resilience, had been a risk, a collection of 20 pieces, each one a story of renewal, blending vintage textiles with bold, modern cuts. One dress, made from reclaimed silk scarves, unfolded on the runway to reveal hidden layers, symbolizing growth through adversity. Another, a modular coat, shifted from structured to fluid with a single tug, earning gasps from the crowd. The response was beyond what I'd dared hope. A local design blog called it a love letter to sustainability and strength, and a buyer from an eco-conscious boutique placed an order on the spot. Those moments of recognition fueled my drive, but they didn't define it. My pride came from seeing my vision come to life, from knowing I'd poured my heart into every stitch. Work became a whirlwind of opportunity. My tiny studio buzzed with energy as my assistants, Mia and Leo, helped me keep up with new orders. We'd huddle over sketches, debating color palettes or hunting for the perfect upcycled fabric at thrift markets. Mia, with her knack for bold prints, would suggest daring combinations I'd never considered, while Leo's precision kept our production on track. We were a small team, but we felt like a family, united by a shared love for creating something meaningful. I started teaching a weekend workshop at the community center where I'd first found my artistic voice years ago, mentoring young designers who reminded me of my younger self, full of ideas but unsure of their worth. Watching them light up as they discovered their own style was a reminder of why I'd chosen this path. My family ties shifted too, weaving new patterns I hadn't expected. Dad became my biggest cheerleader. He'd show up at the studio with takeout, insisting we talk shop over dumplings. He'd ask about my latest projects, genuinely curious about how I turned ideas into garments. One day, he brought a photo album from my childhood, pointing out drawings I'd forgotten, scribbled flowers and imaginary cities. "You were always creating," he said, his voice thick with pride. "I should have fought harder for you to know that was enough." His words healed old wounds, and our bond grew into a source of joy, a steady thread in my life. Sarah and I kept building our relationship, brick by careful brick. We weren't perfect, sometimes she'd mention a work achievement and I'd brace for the old comparisons, but we'd catch it and laugh, redirecting to neutral ground. Her daughter, Lily, became our bridge. I'd visit their Boston home, bringing tiny handmade gifts, a quilted blanket, a soft cap with embroidered stars. One afternoon, as Lily napped, Sarah and I sat on her porch, sipping iced tea. "I used to think Mom's expectations were just for you," she admitted. "But they shaped me too. I was afraid to fail, to not be the perfect daughter. You choosing your path, no matter what, that's braver than anything I've done." Her honesty cracked open a new kind of closeness. We weren't just sisters now, we were friends, rooting for each other's victories. Mom remained the toughest puzzle. Our relationship was a slow, uneven climb. Some days, she'd call with real curiosity, asking about a new design or a fabric technique she'd read about. Other times, she'd slip, saying something like, "Sarah's firm is expanding, such a secure path," and I'd feel the familiar ache. But I'd learned to respond without anger. "I'm happy for her, Mom, but let's talk about my latest project." Therapy had given me tools to hold those boundaries, to not let her words unravel me. I saw her efforts too, like when she attended a small pop-up shop I hosted, asking a vendor about my process with a shy smile. The biggest surprise came when I visited their home and saw my framed sketch still hanging proudly beside Sarah's diploma. "It belongs there," she said when I noticed, her tone matter of fact. It wasn't a grand gesture, but it was hers, and I held it close. Jason and I were writing a new story too. Our reunion had sparked cautiously, both of us older and wiser. He'd grown into his own as a graphic designer, working on campaigns for sustainable brands that aligned with my values. We'd spend evenings in my studio, me pinning fabric while he sketched logos, music filling the air. "I love how you never gave up," he said one night, watching me adjust a dress form. I should have believed in that more before. His support now was unwavering. He'd proofread my grand applications, celebrate my small wins, and bring me tea during late-night work sessions. I valued his grounding presence, the way he balanced my creative chaos with calm insight. Our love felt deeper this time, rooted in mutual growth and a shared belief in chasing what sets your soul on fire. the biggest transformation was internal. That night I stood up to Mom had lit a spark, and over the year, it grew into a fire I could feel in my bones. I'd stopped looking over my shoulder, wondering how I measured up. My life was mine, crafted from late-night sketching, thrift store treasure hunts, and the quiet thrill of seeing a design come to life. I defined success as creating work that mattered to me, that spoke to resilience and sustainability, not as a tally of awards or bank balances. This shift let me see Sarah's struggles too, how Mom's expectations had boxed her in, leaving little room for her own doubts. Understanding that softened the old rivalry, replacing it with empathy. Forgiving Mom wasn't about erasing the past. It was about choosing to let go of its weight. My therapist's words echoed, "Forgiveness is for you, to reclaim your life." I'd carried resentment like a heavy coat, but now I was shedding it, layer by layer. It didn't mean pretending the hurt never happened, it meant refusing to let it steer my future. That freedom let me approach Mom with patience, celebrating her small steps without needing her to rewrite history. Looking back, I saw how every struggle had built me. The little girl who hid her art, the teen who rebelled, the artist who doubted herself, they all led to the woman I was now, confident, creating, and unapologetically me. I didn't need to be Sarah or anyone else. My power was in owning my gifts, in living a life that reflected my truth. And in that truth, I found a simple, unshakable fact: I'd always been enough. Have you ever pushed back against unfair comparisons? How did you carve out your own definition of success? Drop your stories in the comments, I'd love to hear them. If my journey struck a chord, like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear they're enough just as they are. Thanks for joining me on this path of healing and self-discovery. Keep shining as your true, beautiful self.